So yeah, that Entropy 2 review did pretty well, didn't it? I want to say thank you to all the views, likes and subscribers I got in that review. This channel almost hit 100 subscribers, which makes me really happy to think about because I truly loved the game. And as I said, I'll do a spoiler review at a later date to give people a chance to play through the amazing games themselves, but I also want to do a review and analysis of the story as a whole, Entropy 0, 1 and 2. I initially wanted to squish both of the reviews into one video, however at the end of typing out the whole script for Entropy 1, I realized how much I actually wanted to talk about Entropy 1, and I'm feeling quite burnt out after this endeavor, to say the least. I'm definitely going to make a similar review on Entropy 02 at a later date, and maybe after a while smush both of the videos into one if that's what you want. However, I'm just going to put all of my focus on the first game. In both of these games, you play as, or more specifically, replay the experiences of 3650, otherwise known as Bad Cop, or otherwise known as Aiden Walker, but I'll just call him 36 for the sake of simplicity. In this video, I'm just going to give you a summary and analysis of the story that plays out, but I'm not going to sit here and admire and Gluck 9000 the Breadman himself, because let's be real. What's in it for him? This fan-made franchise builds brand new lore into the Half-Life universe, attempting to show the events of Half-Life from the perspective of Combine soldiers. The Combine being human soldiers controlled by an alien overlord, probably one of the most oppressive and downright horrible multi-dimensional Imperial villains in any fantasy world to date. And Breadman's team of Breadmen makes you sympathize for these antagonists. Yeah, there's no way you can try to make me feel bad for these fascist Imperials. They enslaved every human on Earth, systematically committing mass genocide while prohibiting further reproduction, and used the Citadel to drain all of the resources of Earth, including the oceans, to leave humanity and the Earth as a whole to rot out and die for their own benefits. There's no way you can try to make me sympathize with the Combine soldiers, because you don't need to try. You did. You somehow bloody fucking did. These games somehow manage to show you the dark side of the Combine, yet feel bad for these bad guys. This is what I feel is one of the strongest themes of this mod franchise. I'm going to talk about the story and the gameplay and the good and the bad of both, but before I do want to give you my last spoiler warning. If you haven't downloaded and played these games yet, I highly recommend them. They're fun, free, and fucking fantastic. It still surprises me that these are just fans of the Half-Life games working together to bring something enjoyable to other fans of the same franchise. But without further ado, and warnings of spoilers being said, let's turn on our night vision, head straight into City 17, and make Gordon Freeman pick up some trash that I fucking chucked at his face. Entropy 0, 1 and 2 have completely different starts, as 1 throws you right into the action from the get-go, with the objective of clearing a rebel hideout under the clearance being civil protection. Personally, I feel that this abrupt and shocking introduction to this game cleverly highlights many things at once. There's no explanation beyond civil protection, the underlying message being they don't need clearance. The Combine came down to earth, bent it over their knee, and used their whole deluxe BDSM spanking kit collection. They waged a war with the whole world, but unlike Germany, they won in 7 hours. They don't need clearance. They can do whatever they want. So while knowing this, you begin to ask yourself, why does this assignment even need to be cleared as civil protection when we well and truly know the Combine don't care about protecting Earth? After all, the Combine are biologically and psychologically altered human soldiers to serve alien overlords. So an answer to that question could be that the clearance is an attempt to mask the actions to appeal to the human emotion, making a sinister act of warfare against their own species simply look like an ordinary act of duty. I feel that the aliens are emulating real-life similar examples of real-life military soldiers being tasked a horrific duty. It doesn't weigh in on your conscience if A, it's just another job, B, it's been cleared, no need to worry, and C, do this or you'll get killed for being disobedient. For all we know, the original brief from the higher-ups could have been along the lines of, I want some unevolved monkey people to be slaughtered by compliant unevolved monkey people so that we can suck all the water and beer from this shitty planet and fuck off back to the Combine overworld. The attempts being made in controlling their human minions are aiming to preserve their obedience because the Combine soldiers have been known to relapse in many ways, feel human emotion or remember their past life and long for it, 36 being a prime example later on. I know this was a bit of a tangent, but I want to highlight how simple yet clever this introduction is. 36 is at this time a pawn of his alien overlords, just like every other Combine in his squad, and he is stuck in a loop of work, sleep, repeat. And up until the events later on in this game, it's safe to assume that this is all he will ever know, and he won't be given enough time or free will to think as an individual about his past or emotions. Constantly being surrounded by other Combine soldiers who are stuck in the same situation, he wouldn't know any better. But that is until... This is probably the most pivotal moment for 36, an immediate break from the cycle. His train has just been derailed and is now a lone wolf in the City 17 outskirts, with no communication to other Combine soldiers and no updates from his overlords. He's now acting on his own accord. He's now free to do and think whatever he wants. But I mean, like, he's still kinda loyal to the Combine. It's gonna take a lot more than that to re-alter his mind, but the segue of this adventure is a big character building arc for 36. He's not only forced to fight off headcrab zombies and rebel soldiers all alone, but he has to think for himself on how to traverse an intricate map and solve puzzles to make it back to City 17. He's building a sense of independence, scavenging, problem solving, increasing his skills while not even being fully aware of this. While I think this is genius in itself, it does bring me to a minor downfall this first game has. The problem solving at times can be great and really fun and really smart, but other times it feels like it takes way too long to figure out, especially in the end game. This could be the fact that I'm kinda retarded, but this can be a pretty big momentum breaker for many players. Yet although some of the puzzles were definitely a lot more boring and time consuming than its sequel, it was at the same time better. There were definitely more smart puzzles to solve and different ways of solving them than in Entropy Zero 2, but the overall gameplay and map design when you're finally up against your next group of rebel scum is performed well, and further along these sections you even come up to a stealth mission where you sneak past the rebels to reprogram the turrets to attack the rebels instead of you, which I thought was a pretty cool idea. I liked this shit. There aren't any stealth missions quite like this in its predecessor. But continuing on with the story, you end up finding a Combine soldier who has been captured and is being jailed behind the gates by the rebels. You later set him free and things start getting weird. You have some small talk with this other Combine, and bada bing bada boom, he knocks you unconscious, revealing himself to be a rebel. Now, this is just a theory on my part, but I want to believe this to be true. Is that Barney? We know that Barney has already impersonated a Combine soldier at the start of Half-Life 2, so what if this dude is also Barney, heading to City 17 as well to get Gordon Freeman in the same timeline? I mean, I have no real basis on this theory, it's just something that would be pretty cool, but if anyone else has any supporting or disproving theories or actually knows the answer to who this rebel could be, feel free to comment down below and let me know. So you're later presumed to be dead and get chucked down a hole into an underground facility holding poison headcrabs and poison zombies. Remember, this is just one Combine soldier and like 50 zombies and headcrabs. Through this journey, you fight stronger and stronger things, still scavenging for health and ammo while using any different weapons that are available. This is similar to Gordon Freeman's starting journey in Half-Life 1, and later on these similarities get stronger and stronger, but overall this section I felt was done pretty well too. I always loved fighting headcrabs, but there were some pretty cool puzzles involved in this area. Spooky voices that completely didn't catch me off guard and convince me that I'm a schizophrenic for the 100th time, because I'm definitely not a hypochondriac. But most of all, Valve. 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 10 out of 10. However, later on are certainly my favorite sections of this game. You make it to this area where you have to hold your position, fighting off waves of zombies with turrets at your disposal. You begin to feel a little comfortable that they might not make it through, then the walls around you start to fucking break open, revealing poison zombies coming at you from all angles. Man, god damn, this section was fucking great. One of the walls that busted open reveals a tunnel that you can crawl through. When you make it to the end, there is a surge detected after stepping into electricity and you're no longer able to use your night vision, something that you have heavily relied upon through the entirety of this underground section. Alone in the dark, there is a beam of white light that starts making its way to you, revealing itself to be a stalker. So you and the stalker team up where he leads you with his flashlight through the following sections and unlocks doors in your path. This section has to be one of my personal favorites, if not one of my favorite missions in this game. You use his flashlight or the flares you'll find scattered around as your only light source, and while escorting him to your next destination, you must protect him against other zombies and barnacles that can suck him up. I truly thought the feeling of vulnerability and general spooky vibes that this section provides was done extremely well. In saying that, to play devil's advocate, the stalker was moving about as fast as me if I had no legs and no arms. But I thought this whole section, allying with a stalker while mowing down waves of zombies, was a blast and a great service to the fans of this series. He eventually leads you through the map and opens up a door, and you're yet again in another spine-chilling segment. A train leading you down a narrow tunnel where the power shuts off about halfway through and leaves you in the dark with no light except for dim red lights on the ground of the track. Eventually blue lights are seen above you, and you ride right into a wall that reveals itself to be a door opening last minute to bring you to another facility where you're then left to fight off Vortigaunts. Although the dimly and barely lit area may sound super simple, the feeling they created in making this segment was done perfectly. It felt creepy as fuck, yet cool as fuck. However, this is a good segue to bring up another complaint I do have with this game. It was just too dark all the time. The section I mentioned was great, and the section before that where you're relying on the stalker's light is just perfect, but I found myself using night vision for the majority of this playthrough. I need to state firstly that this is just subjective criticism I have when it comes to personal preference. I thought the night vision was definitely cool at first, but it has a filter that downgrades the quality of the game. I'm not at all saying Half-Life 2 is a next-gen graphical masterpiece by today's standards. However, I would have preferred to swap out the fuzzy look of the night vision for a more picturesque driven night vision that keeps the same level of visual clarity. I found myself really appreciating moments where I didn't use night vision because it was just like I removed swimming goggles or something, and I couldn't read a lot of writing or signs on the wall or inside dark buildings because the text became very distorted and altered. However, this isn't a big complaint, it's just something small that I started noticing because most of the game, like I said, requires you to use night vision. But yes, Vortigaunts. You're now fighting Vortigaunts. I'll leave the history between the Vortigaunts and the Combine until we come to the final boss, as it's definitely something I need to touch on later on. Vortigaunts in this game were just the right difficulty in my opinion. They were strong enough to kill you in 5 hits on normal difficulty, however gave you time to duck and fire in between their beams of vortescence. They certainly weren't the hardest and most time consuming of the end game, but in my opinion, the puzzles just got downright confusing. After entering the tunnel that blasts you into the next section, it's easy to understand people's frustration with this game. I found no real indication of what red and green lights should be switched on or off, and when I somehow finally figured it out, I assumed that I could simply use an object to shield the lasers blocking my path. Nope. I was just stuck on this section for way too long. Eventually I had to find a guide that showed me that I needed to shoot this blue light thing with an energy ball, but this just took me way too long and was a big halt to the momentum of this adventure. It could boil down to the fact that I'm
kinda retarded.
However, due to YouTube's most replayed feature in a video, I was shocked to see that most replayed part of the videos were all involving this section. And as everything else that I have a hard time figuring out, I'm glad it wasn't just me. But for now, you need to get through this facility. You must open a vent and send in a drone to take out a stalker who's blocking the next exit. Not gonna lie, I felt bad for killing a stalker since one helped me through this vital section I just passed. And after shooting more energy balls into laser generators as well, the stalkers come down to manually power it back up for you to be forced to kill more. I did like this segment regardless of my feelings, as it reminded me of Half-Life 2 Episode 1 where you had to do similar things. However, in this game, they get mad and attacked you directly for interfering. Not gonna lie, this was heartbreaking, my G. I didn't want to do this. They're my friends. But it was quite fun. But this destruction brings upon the attention of your first boss fight. You injure the beast enough until he jumps away, then gets pissed at himself for bitching it and peer pressures himself to come back, limp dick in hand, for round 2. There's nothing amazing about this boss fight in general, however nothing bad comes to mind either. It was a bit of fun and well balanced, so I don't really have that much to say about this conflict. It was good. To my knowledge, this wasn't the controversial boss fight, it was the next one. I understand why people had a hard time with this boss, however the difficulty itself wasn't what upset me. This leads me to bring up the history between the Combine and Vortigaunts. 36 has a talk with the head Vortigaunt and there was no explanation for what's going down, but more importantly, the Vortigaunt leader was more disgusted with 36 being human than being a Combine, and told his companions that you can now kill this human without consequences, which delighted and invigorated the other Vortigaunts to kill this human. This just downright confused me in many ways because humans aren't the first species to fall victim to the Combine's wrath. The Vortigaunts were also victim to mass genocide at the Combine's hand, forcing the last surviving members of their race from their home planet to rush to Xen, where, well, they met the Nihilith. Yeah, things weren't so happy-chappy for the Vortigaunts, but remember, they were the good guys and friendly with humans during Half-Life 2. I feel like the simple switch of the Vortigaunts' hatred for 36 being shifted to his collaborations with the Combine rather than 36 being human would have been a far better story plot. After all, the Vortigaunts have no real reason to hold any grudge against humans. Earth became a second home for the Vortigaunts after the events of Half-Life 1. They allied with humans and even took the time to learn their language. The only reason they should hate humanity is just for one dude, Gordon Freeman's mass murder of them in Xen. But even then, they touched tips with him during Half-Life 2, thanking him for freeing them from the mind control of the Nihilith and even helped him on their journey. The man who could have single-handedly wiped their species extinct. They forgave him. Their time on Earth proves them to be social and friendly creatures, but in saying that, story context aside and controversial opinions to arise, I actually quite enjoyed the final boss fight in this game. Granted, it can be a bit save scummy, as it seems like this bullshit segment is filled with death after death and trial and error, but I thought the gameplay itself, once understood, was a blast to do. There are a lot more phases in this final boss fight requiring you to figure out the best plan of attack, jump over lasers, and be a lot more evasive and attentive than in most other Half-Life installments, including Entropy Zero 2. And there are different ways to beat this boss as well that I've seen online that differs from mine. For example, when the pool of electric goo shit, don't even know what this is, fills the floor to insta-kill you, I tried taking the high ground to completely avoid it, whereas I've seen other YouTubers such as Bollocks simply hold down on the health and power supplies that are on the ground level, taking back the damage that they've lost. There are a lot of things that didn't make sense and a lot of trial and error, but in the end when it came to a close and I finally deciphered this section, I felt a lot more accomplished during this section than in any other Half-Life mod or installment, and after all, it's not like Valve themselves aren't guilty of making a shitty boss fight themselves. When this whole segment comes to a close, you are finally brought back to reunite with your Combine comrades, where the Overlord talks to you directly and admires your efforts, granting you a long-awaited promotion. It demands you to keep this conversation between each other and informs you that there is a new threat from an old foe. Then you realize the promotion is mandatory and involves consciousness transferal to another body. There will be pain and there will be darkness. We will see you up ahead. I know this first installment was filled with some negative feedback to do with many aspects of the game, however don't let my criticism lead you to believe that I didn't like it. That's not at all what I'm going for with this analysis. The adventure you go on and the underlying character building of 36 was done great. Puzzles were great and not so great in my opinion, but the overall gameplay and world design was crafted beautifully. It has a phenomenal concept and is a great lead up to Entropy Zero 2. It's overall relatively lore friendly and the Half-Life magic is definitely present within the first installment, and overall it had a polished and professional feeling to the experience that not a lot of other mods have. It was smooth. I don't think I experienced any crashes or bugs at all, but one of the coolest aspects of this mod is it has realistic voice acting that truly sounds like Combine soldiers, accompanied by well-written dialogue between themselves that adds a bit of personality to the bad guys. And another neat feature about this game is that you can load up a firing range map where you spawn in and you can grab pretty much any weapon from the sandbox and pull the lever, and then you'll be able to practice on some target humans. Well, this just got fucked up real quick. To be honest, I don't know why the developers thought this was a good idea. Trapping live humans with their only purpose of being a target to shoot at is downright horrible and something that I will never partake in. This segues me to talk about the gameplay, or more specifically the gunplay. I particularly like that you feel stronger and guns seem to make more of an impact on unarmored rebel soldiers, both with ragdoll effects and with the sound that the gun makes. However, at the same time you take more damage as well. You can easily be killed or kill, which is what I feel they were going for. The power of being a Combine soldier, yet the vulnerability of not being Gordon Freeman. This game being free, I would have happily paid money for this and say that I would have gotten my money's worth, but being said, Entropy Zero 2 is where they did a full 720 no-scope and somehow managed to craft a masterpiece that rivals the main Half-Life installments. They somehow managed to fill in the void of longing for another Half-Life game while putting together one of the most perfect games in general. It was quite literally as if Valve bought out the company and made their own game. You don't need to play Entropy Zero 1 to understand and appreciate Entropy Zero 2, but it is a great setup for the story. But without talking about Entropy Zero 2 for too long, as I definitely want to leave that for another video, if you want to keep updated, be sure to like and subscribe. But I want to thank the developers for taking this much time and effort with a stunning modification to the Half-Life game. I really appreciate the work that goes into these, but without further ado, I need to sleep. Thanks again for watching this video, and I hope I was able to entertain or inspire you to try out these games. But for now, I'll catch you in the next episode. As always, stay safe, stay sexy, stay humble. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Suck your nipple.